Yo, what's up? My name is Petrowski, and I just wanted to sit here and honestly ramble today. Just talk, do what I do best, which is yapping, while also showing off my kind of updated, quote unquote, deck list for vintage. Nothing super spicy, nothing super interesting. I think I'm going a pretty traditional vintage jewel shops build. However, I might be leaning harder into Paradox engines. I think I've heard someone say that that is kind of a new player's, like a noob's thing to do more Paradox engines, and maybe I'm doing that process, but I think I need to learn that process for myself if that is true. I saw someone win a challenge with 4 Paradox engines in the main board, and I'm probably gonna go something like 3 Paradox engines, but I want to, number one, show off my vintage deck today and show off the build. I am very, very far from being a vintage player. Very, very far from actually having a proper vintage deck, and very far from considering myself a true vintage player in the year 2025. I'm starting to build the deck in the year 2025, so I have a long way to go. I'm looking to, hopefully, after my taxes are totally finished, maybe pick up a time vault, like pick up my first big piece, but for now, we just have things like this nice little mana vault, the retro frame manifold key. We did get the nice foil coveted jewels, Voltaic key, Tinker, and then we have all these proxies, all these dirty Sharpie on bulk magic cards proxies. The Sapphires, the Ancient Tomb. This will probably get turned into a Paradox engine main board. Paradoxical Outcomes, the nice promo Metamorphs. I'm also cutting top. This is something that I see a lot. I thought I really like playing with top. One of the things I miss the most about Legacy, which is something I'll talk about today, is rambling a lot about Legacy. As you can see, my decks here in the background. I want to talk about Legacy and kind of why I'm not leaving Legacy. I still definitely love Legacy and probably will always love it more than Vintage, would be my guess. I don't know. I haven't played much Vintage yet, but I love Legacy so dang much, but I don't love the spot that it's in right now, sadly. And we'll talk about that. But Sensei's top, I thought I would like in a deck like this, and I miss playing top, but I don't know if it actually fits in this deck as well as I thought. And I'll talk about, I'm a vintage noob, so please take what I say with a grain of salt. But I feel like looking at the top 3 cards of your deck and reorganizing them, when most of the time in this deck you're drawing 3 cards, is just not as good as it should be, right? So you have all these things: Urza Saga, Mishra's Workshop, a lot of cards that I could pick up like pretty quote unquote cheaply. Cardboard's expensive, man. Like Urza Saga is a cheaper card for this deck, and that's like 30 to 50, you know. The workshops will probably stay proxied for a long time. Tolarian Academy is doable. It's about 1 to 200 depending on condition. You even get like damaged ones for like 80 or so. I want to get a nicer Soul Ring. This is something I'll upgrade in the future. I don't like the Commander like Soul Ring. I like a nice old, probably nothing crazy, like a revised Soul Ring. Nothing insane. Just a little bit. One rings are something I'll be getting, you know, hopefully this year as well. Black Lotus, your Moxes. Force of Wills, I just have in another, I have them in Stifle Knot and Dreadnought, so I do have the Force of Wills. They're just proxied like that for now. Time Walk, Ancient Tomb, Simulacrum, Synthesizer. One of the main win cons of the deck. Great card. Wow, it just feels really, really insane in this deck. Probably another one that's like $50 or so. It's doable. We do have the Cryptid de Mana, the Mana Crypt. We have a nice Vexing Bauble. I picked up, I think, 4 to 6 foil Vexing Baubles when they came out. They went up a little bit when they got really good in Legacy. Then they got banned. They're pretty cheap, but I like it. Why not? Sinking of Stupors, I just got some of those. I had the Otawara sitting around in a Commander deck. 1 Paradox Engine. This will turn into 3 in the deck. I have 1 Island. I think the Island either needs to turn into a Sink to Stupor. There might be a few more changes. I do like the G-Probe. I think that's like a not that is one of the non-traditional picks for this deck, is I don't think a lot of people run the G-Probe. I like it. I miss G-Probe in Legacy. The One Ring. That's another one I might cut, is I might cut the One Ring down to 2 instead of 3. But I'll have to play with it more. I'll have to see how it feels. I've been really, really enjoying I haven't, who plays Vintage nowadays? Really, really enjoying the process. And this is just kind of magic for me nowadays. I've been really, really enjoying the process of building Vintage, studying it, practicing, learning, and just doing a whole heck of a lot of gold fishing. Like, I'm enjoying gold fishing Vintage more, and gold fishing, just magic in general nowadays, more than ever. And obviously gold fishing cannot teach you everything. You can't really learn any sideboarding with gold fishing. You can't learn any tech unless you're like very, very well versed in the metagame. Something I would do a lot when gold fishing Stifle Knot and Dreadnought back in the day is just constantly planning around my opponent's removal. I would choose an opponent, like, oh, my opponent's going to play Shardless Bug today. I'm going to, play around that, factor in abrupt decays, etc., etc. Obviously, we're long past Shardless Bug being a thing, but I would choose an opponent. Oh, my opponent's on Miracles today. These are the worst examples for modern day Magic, but choose a theoretical opponent and then Goldfish against that. But I also want to go through some of my legacy decks today, and none of these are fully built, especially this one. This one is like more so of a for fun thing at this point. I mean, a lot of the cards that are proxied in here, at least I have nice proxies in here. A lot of the cards that are proxied in here, I mean, these are real. I want to foil this out. I have Force of Wills, you know, they're just a different deck. Yeah, like I have a proxied Ponder in here, like there's another deck. Shuko's like $1. I could pick that up, but I want to get it foiled. The Trops I don't have. The Blooded Agent's a few bucks. If I wanted to really push to have Infect done, I would. I do really, really like, I think Infect could be a little more underrated than people. The problem is you just need so many tools for it. I feel like if you're going to play Infect right now, you just have to full commit to Nadu and arguably run. I kind of want to test running multiple Shukos, which is a little silly, but I don't know. I feel like it could be. I feel like you almost just run Infect as an Infect with Nadu combo deck, like in the same slot, just kind of a dual threat, as opposed to just relying on always having Invigorate plus Embiggen or Invigorate, you know, Berserk. Like having to have those exact, and plus it's so hard. From my experience playing Infect, it's so hard to have the proper kill in hand, like the proper pump spells plus protection. It's just, it feels, and coming from like a Stifle Knot player, it feels so much harder to have the proper protection plus kill in hand with Infect. However, Infect is very, very resilient comparatively to something like Stifle Knot, which I've played the most out of any, not even just Legacy deck, but the most out of any Magic the Gathering deck I've ever played. The deck I've played the most is Stifle Knot. I've played every variant, played every version, except for I kind of want to transition this one. This one's mono blue right now is my current setup, but I kind of want to transition it over to blue white. Oh, my Dreadnought. I got really lucky. I even have proxies. I got Scalding Tarn proxy here. Like they're getting a little more up there in price, but this could be slotted in if I needed it to. You'll see a lot of weird things in this current Dreadnought list, and I kind of want to switch it over to blue-white with Doorkeeper Thralls. I came back to the game. Tamiyo's. I don't have my Tamiyo's. That's a newer card to me. So for those who don't know, I played Magic the Gathering religiously about, I want to say, how old am I? 26. 10 years ago, I played religiously from the age of like 16 to 18, maybe like 15 to 19, something like that. And then I just took a cold, hard break from the ages of like 20 to 25, 26. I've been getting back into it over the past 6 months or so, and I'm really fortunate. I played back things. I got my Dreadnoughts for $12, $13 a piece. One of them has a giant corner missing, which is beautiful. I love it, honestly. This is an Abhorrent Oculus. That was a card, I really wish I would have picked mine up. That was a card I was testing Abhorrent Oculus before Duskmourn released in a Dreadnought deck, and I was like, wow, this might be the perfect, like niche perfect card for Dreadnought, and nobody was talking about it at the time. And I was playtesting it. I built like a deck on tappedout.net because I still use that site because I'm boomer. Sovereign Denial main, I really, really enjoy. But I was testing Abhorrent Oculus, and nobody really knew it was good yet. It was like a $8 to $12 card still on. There's the chunk, beautiful. It's like an $8 to $10 card, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna buy them. I think it's good. Let me go ahead and go pick up my Abhorrent Oculuses. And as I went to pick them up, I kid you not, they were being bought out. People realized they were good. The card shot up to $30. I was able to buy 3 of like the full art variant right before the buyout, but it was from a scam shop, so they never actually sent them. I never got them. I got my money back. I got refunded, which was nice, but it sucked that I missed out on getting cheap Oculuses when I really, really, really needed those. Really wanted them for the deck. But what are you going to do? And it kind of goes into what I want to talk about today. I mean, I think Abhorrent Oculus is a outlier example of it, of kind of a new card being added to a niche deck like Stifle Knot, and I think it's actually kind of cool. A card like Tamiyo, I don't love as much, and I'm replaced my Delvers in my Dreadnought deck with it, and I don't find this card fun. I don't find it enjoyable. I don't find it skill based. I don't find it. I really, really. I mean, it is skill based to some extent with sequencing and stuff. I don't enjoy Tamiyo. I don't enjoy, like many of us, Modern Horizons 3. And it's a big reason I made today's video. I'm trying to make today's video, but I keep rambling about cards and showing off cards instead of just talking about the problems. Legacy feels like a rotating format at this point, and that bums me out. I feel like I started building Legacy when I was 15 years old. I bought my Dreadnoughts for $12. You know, fetches were the expensive part back then. They were like 20 to 30 a piece. I got my Preordains, my Ponders, my Force Wills much later on, my Brainstorms, Vision Charms, you know, they're still cheap, but like I always Dazes for like $5 a piece. I don't know what they are now, $5 a piece then, probably similar now. I always wanted to build Stiflenaut. And Stiflenaut 10 years ago was horrible, and it was a big reason why I ended up quit. I think it was underrated. 10 years ago, I think it was genuinely underrated. However, then a few cards got printed. That could be honestly its own topic for a different video. We'll actually ramble about that in a different video, but I'll talk about why I quit Magic 10 years ago. So because it was a mixture of a few things like life problems, but then also the game was just bad. Like the game was horrible for me specifically. I shouldn't even say like the game itself. For me specifically, but let's talk about. I feel like everything is rotational now, and it makes me sad. Taking a break from Magic, when I took a break, the lead format in the game when I took a break from Magic was Standard. And I was like, okay, you know, it makes sense. Standard is the big format, the lead format, whatever. It's kind of it's the new cards. It's, you know, I hate that it's a rotational format. A rotational format being the lead format is a little lame, but what are you gonna do? And when I came back and saw that the new like major format in Magic the Gathering was Commander, I was like, that's awesome. I always felt like Commander was a better format than Standard. And Standard has its time and places, but I kind of don't like. I know a lot of people really like Standard right now. I really don't. From the little I play on MTG Arena, which is wildly different. I hard prefer physical cards. But it was cool to come back and see Commander being being the most popular format. I was like, you know what? Honestly, that's pretty cool. Now, do I miss people playing 60 card formats as much? I mean, I do, because I think Magic is like a very competitive game. It doesn't have to be, but at its best, when it's a 60 card format, like somewhat competitive game, but with some good brew. As you can see with all my decks, I play very like brew level decks in high power eternal formats, and I like to think I do okay. I have my rough days, you know, where I regret it all. And, you know, so you see cards like this in your deck and you're like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You know, and I say, play me in a match, you know. I know a lot of it looks pretty trolly and a lot of it is pretty trolly. And do I lose more matches than I could win by playing this? Probably. Do I have more fun? And do I win games I shouldn't be able to win because of this? Yeah, you know, I kind of trade off 5% win rate for 4% win rate in a different matchup or different direction, which I kind of don't, or maybe like 3%, you know. I don't mind. I like that. I enjoy it. So I'm getting off topic again, but the point is the rotationing feeling that Legacy feels like right now, where with every new set, instead of back in my day, boomer alert, I know I sound very boomer, I'm sorry. Back in my day, when a new Magic the Gathering set came out, it was like, oh shit, let me look through the whole set, and then maybe there's like 1 to 3 cards that maybe, possibly, perhaps could be arguably maybe a little good in one Legacy deck nichely, right? Nowadays, a set comes out and 6 of the cards are being played in Legacy, right? Even with like Aether Drift, a pretty weak set, we're seeing a lot of new cards. Duskborn, we saw a lot of new cards. Modern Horizons 3 is the easiest one, where we saw things like Vexing Bauble get put into break Legacy and get banned. Grief, break Legacy, get banned. Vexing Bauble, Psychic Frog, break Legacy, get banned. Like, even like people talk about the power of the Lord of the Rings set is been like deteriorating, in my opinion, eternal formats. Things like the One Ring, things like even that's the troll, the Khazandu troll. I think that card really, as simple as it seems, is really what propelled a lot of the consistency of Dimir Reanimator, right? I've always hated Reanimator in Legacy, to be fair. That's always been like my least favorite matchup and deck to play against in even 12 years ago, when it wasn't as good. I kind of think it was underrated back then, but whatever. But in my opinion, it bums me out coming back to Legacy 10 years later, and I had to buy all these new cards. And even this deck like just isn't as good as it could be. I don't have my Sowing Micro Spawns. I'm still running Tireless Trackers, you know. It was cool, but like Tireless Tracker was we'll do Shadows of Innistrad, I guess. Tireless Tracker and Shadows of Innistrad was a pretty interesting set because there was a few cards like this. It's like, okay, you want to run Tireless Tracker in 12 posts? Like, you can do it. Or like lands or whatever. It's kind of fun. It's kind of quirky. It's kind of interesting. Nowadays, it's probably way too slow. This card has probably been like totally phased out, but I'm still going to try to run it. But back then, it was like, you know what? This is a niche, cool card that you could try to run in a deck, and it's probably like pretty good in certain matchups, but it's also probably kind of suboptimal. Nowadays, you have to buy 4 Sowing Myco spawns, or you're falling behind, right? Every new set that comes out, you have to upgrade your Eternal decks. And the whole point, the whole beauty of Eternal formats 10 years ago was that the whole appeal was, in Standard, you pay, $100 to $500 for a standard deck, and then that deck rotates, right? And that's like the downside of it, right? It's cheaper, quote unquote, but then it rotates. That's the downside. But Legacy, okay, you can build a deck for like $2 to $6 grand, right? However, it's always going to be viable. It's never going to rotate. You can always play that one deck. That's not true anymore, like at all. If a deck got banned, that's okay. Like when Miracles got banned, part of me felt bad for Miracles players. I liked the Miracles. Like, it was a bad matchup for me, but I enjoyed the intricacy of the magic. That those games felt very, very skill-based and very, very intricate. If a deck gets banned, that's one thing. When Top got banned, I understood. When Probe got banned, I miss it, but I get it. I understand. It makes sense, right? When a deck gets banned for power level reasons, that's fine. You kind of gotta, grow up and move on and accept that. But when cards are just getting phased out due to power creep constantly in an Eternal format, what are we doing is kind of my question. And I know maybe a lot of players who don't feel like this, and if you don't feel like this, hell yeah, more power to you. Your opinion's just as valid. I'm not saying that I'm 100% right, and I'm not saying my perspective and my view of this and my history of this is 100% accurate. Definitely just sharing my feelings and my perspective in this video. Please don't take it as fact. Please don't take it as I can't accept if someone had to totally disagree with me on everything on this. If someone said, I totally disagree with you with everything, I'd be like, you know what? I understand how that could be the case. I feel this way personally. I'm really bummed that if a new player picks up Magic the Gathering in the year 2025 and they want to get into Legacy, I'm gonna have to tell them like, oh yeah, just be prepared to like rebuild that deck within 5 years, or be prepared to like constantly have to watch new sets still stay up to date, and like always like we're just turning Eternal formats into Standard. That's all it is at this point. With things like Synchronous Stupor, just getting like also in Vintage, like it's crazy to me. I'm excited to get into Vintage because I feel like in Vintage, it's the last, as I'm looking at all these new cards, at least in Vintage, it's one of the last formats, in my opinion, where like you're never gonna power creep the power 9, right? You're never gonna power creep dual lands. There are at least some things in Vintage where it's like, okay, this will never get power crept, right? I don't think Phyrexian Dreadnought will ever get power crept. It's the perfect creature. They kind of do similar things, but nothing will ever be better than Dreadnought, which is kind of cool, right? But I don't know if it's the case. There's so many things now. I just don't know if it's the case. I think so many Legacy decks and stuff will get power crept, right? And they have. We see things like Baleful Strix. Like, I don't really see that anymore. You don't really see a Lauren combo anymore. I miss that deck. I miss playing against Shardless Agent. I miss playing against Nimble Mongoose, and there's some where it's okay, and I'll even give like Nimble Mongoose was a card that, you know what, it had its time in Rug Delver. It did its job, and it stuck around for a long time. Nimble Mongoose slowly and steadily got power crept, which I think is actually okay. I'm not saying power creep shouldn't happen at all, and I'm not juvenile, or I guess what's like a better boomer term, right? Like, I'm not geriatric enough to believe that Nimble Mongoose should never be power crept, right? But the rate at which we're seeing the power creep is what blows my mind, with things like Murktide Regent, with things like all of the Modern Horizons 3 cards that came out. I just don't understand why I'm losing motivation. I'm losing motivation to play Legacy, and it makes me sad. I'm losing motivation to keep up to date with it constantly. I'm losing motivation to care about it. I still really like playing the decks that I do and the cards that I do. I like playing Dreadnought. I always will. It's my favorite deck of any card game ever. I like playing just like goldfishing, mediocre, kind of janky 12 post for fun. It's fun for me. But I'm never going to compete in Legacy the way I did years ago. I'm never gonna, and not even because I'm older, but because I don't like what's happening to it. I don't like the rotations. I'm never gonna compete in Legacy now competitively. I don't see that happening. Same with Vintage. I'm over here building Vintage in 2025, and I'm like, yeah, my competitive days are done. And someone might ask you, why are you spending? Why do you plan to spend the cost of like a new Tesla over 10 to 20 years? You know, I'm a frugal man. Okay, give me a few decades. But why even try? Why even attempt to build something so silly, right? In the current era. And it's because it's fun. And it's because it's less rotational. Even though we're seeing a lot of new cards jump into it, I think Vintage is at least in a good spot right now. From what I see and from what I hear, I don't, play. Maybe I'll have to test on Moto and stuff myself. But I try to keep my nose to the ground and watch a lot of content, engage, check deck lists, check tournaments, check things, and then I kind of just goldfish myself. I don't really go to shops, and even if you go to a physical shop, to be fair, no one's really playing Vintage, unfortunately. I do like that shops are pretty much also like. I don't even have to build. If I want to go to a shop, most 99.9% of shops just allow full proxies for Vintage, just to get people to try the format. And I never, even with that, I never really got it. Once I fished a deck and I played it, it clicked. I was like, wow, Vintage to me always seemed, when I was new to Magic, it always seemed like a broken mess. Like, what's the point? I don't feel that way anymore at all. I feel like Vintage is like such a beautiful format. I always thought Legacy was a beautiful format where like every minute decision, when to brainstorm, when to ponder, when to hold up mana, when to like play around days, play around, like there's so many beautiful, keep a blue card in hand for force draw or force that you have. Like there's so many beautiful decisions in Legacy, when to fetch, when not to fetch, etc. And I feel like Vintage just has that many decisions times 10. and it's overwhelming, but it's also exciting because every time if I reach turn 4 when goldfishing and I haven't won, I'm like, okay, I fucking lost. I sucked it. I totally, definitely lost this game. And there's so many lines that I miss. There's so many times where I'm like, oh wow, I could have tinkered here for this. Instead, I tinkered for Time Vault out of like pattern and out of just habit to go for that win, but I could have gone for this and that would have actually propelled me further into this. And like, there's so many situations in Vintage where I could have gone for something else. When you have a card like Tinker in different situations on what to tinker for, it's just, it's so sick. But Vintage feels really, really good. It suffers some of the same problems as Legacy, but the cards that get power crept out of Vintage, and I could be wrong, please, Vintage heads, the 3 of you that exist, please tell me like what cards have been power crept out of Vintage that destroyed your wallets and destroyed your fun. I do want to hear perspectives on that. But like, I don't feel like your Mishra's Workshop is always going to be Mishra's Workshop. Mishra's Workshop is never going to get power crept, right? Your Power 9, never going to get power crept. Your Time Vault, never going to get power crept, right? There's certain cards like that. If the Coveted Jewels do, then sure. Dude, these like fancy foil versions are like $3, right? I also think it's hilarious. That's a whole nother topic. I think it is so funny. Vintage looks like a commander deck right now. Like, the fact that these 2 cards, a card literally made for Commander, Coveted Jewel, and then a card that is just a Commander staple in a lot of places, but then also is kind of good, right? The fact that these 2 cards are in a Vintage deck is the funniest thing in the world to me. If you showed this to the average Magic player, they would probably assume, in my opinion, that this is a Commander deck, like these 2 cards. I think it's kind of awesome. I think Vintage, and it plays well. It's fun. I really enjoy the state of Vintage right now from my limited naive understanding, and I don't enjoy the state of Legacy. I don't like the power creep. I don't like full sets being released like Modern Horizons with full cycles with all the goyfs. Like, oh yeah, all the goyfs are playable. Tamiyo's playable. It almost also screams to me everything works together. I don't like the like Yu-Gi-Oh level design. And no disrespect towards Yu-Gi-Oh, it's a great card game in a lot of facets. But my biggest dislike of Yu-Gi-Oh is the lack of deck building. And I'm sure there are interesting choices of how many MSTs should I run, or how many things, how many of what spell, yada yada, in Yu-Gi-Oh. Should I run them at all? Dark Holes, blah blah blah, Raigeki, right? You probably always, whatever, right? I know a little bit about Yu-Gi-Oh. But the deck building is so much more restricted in Yu-Gi-Oh because they print things in archetypes, whereas in Magic the Gathering they just print cards that operate on their own. They don't necessarily work together or have namings. And I feel like they're kind of starting to do that. I don't want them to print archetypes. I don't want Wizards to build my decks for me. My favorite part of Magic the Gathering has always been deck building and experimenting, breaking metagames, and just trying to bust open things that other players aren't seeing. And that you have to be deeply, deeply entrenched in practicing, and like you have to be doing so deeply involved to be able to do that. And I'm not there anymore, to be fair. But yeah, I'm rambling at this point. I'm just disappointed in the rotational elements of the quote unquote eternal formats. I feel like they're not really eternal anymore. And I'm building Vintage in 2025. So that's where I'm at. Where's your Magic journeys, guys? Let me know your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions, everything in the comments. This is really just a channel for me to express my thoughts, talk Magic, have fun. I'm not making videos for anybody here for the most part. Right now, at least. I might in the future. I'm making videos for myself, and I'm just enjoying that. And I hope that some of you enjoy it along the way. And if you do, that's awesome. Thanks for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more videos just like it. One video a week at the moment. And have a great day. I'll see you guys later. Peace, Reno.